welcome back. Welcome back. It's peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter jelly with a baseball bat. If you know, you know. But welcome back, friends,
Yes,
family,
yes.
and everyone in between. I am your girl Sade and my lovely co-host.
And I'm Maisha,
And
and
this
this is
is the
the
How
How
You
You Doing
Doing
podcast.
podcast. Well, we're back and we have a special guest, but before we introduce them, hey friend, how you doing on this lovely Sunday afternoon?
Just living my best life. As you know, St. Patrick's Day is tomorrow. So we're recording on Sunday, guys. So St. Patrick's Day was yesterday, actually. So we're just getting ready for that. That's why we have on our green today. But things are doing pretty good. I'm back in therapy finally. After it's been a long hiatus, he was not available. And then when I showed up, he's like, "Where you been? Where the hell you been?
Facts.
You got me out here doing Pilates and all this other stuff. I needed you." So we took a little break. So I'm so happy to be back with you because this is very therapeutic for me, as I always tell you that. So just happy to be back on this good Sunday. How about you?
I'm not gonna lie, Auntie is a little hungover. I'm a little on the struggle bus, but
Hmm.
I am here
Yeah,
and I had a good time. I went to Mardi Gras the beginning of the month.
sure.
Took my sister. That was great. She enjoyed herself. We ate a lot. We walked a lot.
As you should.
And we had a funky, good NOLA time. And I'm also glad to be back. I haven't seen you in a while, so
Right.
it's been like a month. I think
Yeah, yeah,
that's like
yeah.
our longest time away from each other. So I missed you. I'm glad we're back.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder, my love.
I'm sure after this episode, you'll be back on my nerves, but
I'm sure.
I'm glad that we're back. And
Absolutely.
we're not going to take up too much time because we want to let our guests do what they do. So, would you like
Absolutely.
to introduce our special guest,
I
Mr. Peanut Butter himself?
sure do. So, just want to say we have to point out that this is our first in person guest in the studio with us. So we're so
Yay! We're
excited.
so excited.
So I want everyone to please welcome a very special guest today, Paris Brooks, a seasoned substance abuse counselor with 7 years of experience. Paris holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from University of Baltimore, and he's currently pursuing his master's degree at George Mason University to advance his expertise in addiction studies. Throughout his career, Paris has accumulated diverse experience working in various settings, including Baltimore City Detention Center and medication assisted treatment facilities. He is also low key the king of comedy. If you know, you know, a gentle giant standing tall at 6'7", a true lover of crunchy peanut butter. I mean, my big little brother, and most importantly, the father of my first nephew, my baby boy. So please, everyone, welcome Paris to the pod.
Welcome, Paris,
Thank
to
you
the
for having
pod,
me.
We
Mr.
are
Peanut
so
Butter.
happy to have
I
you.
just want to correct one thing. 6'8".
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Put some
excuse.
respect
I
on
don't know where
that.
you got this
She
from.
don't want a puppy. She want a big
Oh,
dog.
big dog.
But don't be looking, ladies. He is married, okay? So
Yes.
keep y'all little puppies, them little Yorkies.
No.
You about to get beat up, okay? You better act like you know and not like you slow.
So before we jump into, the clinical questions, a lot of our guests feel, they come on and they like tense up. I'm like, it's cool. We're here at the pod. Like you see, we cut up. We love a good, ratchet and righteous here at the How You Doing podcast. So we do want to start with just some questions. First of all, we want to know, how are you getting acclimated to fatherhood? It's
It,
been 3 months now.
it's been 3 months on the 12th. He was born December 12th.
Oh,
It's been going great.
Yeah.
So my wife, she's back to work now.
Mhm.
I'm back to work, and we're trying to manage him going to daycare and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been going pretty good. I can't
Good.
complain. Yeah.
Now, is it anything that you like realize? And I know we spoke outside of the pod, like during the prenatal visits or even postpartum visits, like that you noticed that was different for fathers than what what my sister-in-law, your wife's experience was?
Right. Yeah. So I know that the focus needs to be on the woman, right?
Sure.
While she's going through this. But I think I mentioned to you that it would be nice if there was more focus on the male too.
Sure. Sure.
Um, or like when I go and like search things up on the internet, I'm a little taken aback by the fact that there's no, like, they're not talking to the men at all.
Sure.
I'm looking things up and they're like, hey, ladies, this is what we're looking at, and,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But, I'm literally looking these things up every night.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they're not talking to the fathers at all. Or like a clinician, they're in the office talking to Samantha, that's my wife.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't even see me in the room for
Yeah.
the most part. And
Yeah.
I think that part of it is a little different than what I'm, used to in anything else. So
Sure.
yeah,
I think that I don't even think about that because I think so much you think like the woman goes through the pregnancy, that's who you're focused on.
Right.
But then it's also a life adjustment for you as well. You
Yeah.
know, like being a father is a role you've never stepped into.
right,
And some of the things that you should know or be aware of, you don't think to like speak to the dads about that. But I think it is important to also have support for the men as well. So
Right.
I think that is something that is missing,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
right,
And honestly, Paris, I've been through this twice with Brian, but I had never saw it that perspective until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, how nice that you vocalized that and were very vulnerable about that, because that's something that probably a lot of new fathers or fathers in general feel.
right.
So that was good. And then also I wanted to know, like, now that Sam is back to work, I'm sorry, Samantha's back to work and you're back to work and still trying to adapt to this new precious baby at home and your pups and everything. So how has that work-life balance been?
It's been more of a struggle than I imagined. I thought that I'm pretty like, I don't think that people, what am I trying to say? I don't think that I, God, I can't think of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Take it.
Is it like sleep deprivation? Is it, worrying about, hey, what's for dinner? Like
Yeah.
like for a lot of us, like those little things you kind of like take for granted.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so I think the biggest part for me is that I think everything's going to be okay. Right.
Mhm.
So leading up to this, I'm like, oh, this will be another thing that's everybody says like panic, but it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I've noticed it's not okay. Right.
Sure.
This is different. This is a whole different ball game
Right.
than what I'm used to.
Right.
Caleb, he's able to sleep for about 3 to 4 hours at a time.
Mhm.
So it's kind of impacting our sleep, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it's different.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know how to really explain it otherwise than it's just different.
And honestly, no matter how many textbooks you read, how
Right.
many people you speak to that's been there, done that, when you're in it, it's so different.
Mhm.
You can't verbalize it. But
Right.
the good news is, I assure you one thing for certain, and one thing, that I can tell you is that you guys are doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
And every day with him, I'm sure you're noticing different things in different stages.
Right.
So I'm just proud of you guys.
Thank you.
And I'm just thrilled for, giving me my auntie's baby.
Yeah, he's a great baby.
Yeah, he is. He
You're a
is.
twin for sure.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Poor-
hearing that everywhere I go.
Poor Sam.
Alright, just sitting
poor
here,
Sam
it's
just
like-
carried.
Yeah. There was a doctor at his practice at the
Yeah.
practice he's at, and
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh my God, you two,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you two are twins." And I mean, people say that a lot, but
It's
I'm
crazy.
hearing it from
No,
everybody.
definitely.
insane.
It's copy paste for sure.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And I do want one last question before we jump into the clinical. I just have a question because people talk a lot of shit on this podcast. And Sade said that the family said that she was a better karaoke performer and singer than the singer. So I just wanted us to clear this up
Clear it. Paris
for
was there.
our viewers and our listeners.
I was there. I can't remember the song now,
Sure. Britney Spears is what I
Versus
performed.
Tevin Campbell.
so I definitely didn't remember your song,
Oh,
Isha.
definitely didn't remember.
But Sade, it was Tevin Campbell. Can we talk?
Yep.
Oh man,
Oh man.
Oh man, what?
it was.
Are your ears still recovering?
No, it was great.
No, it was. It was a standing ovation. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh.
It-
It's your own family. That's all I'm saying.
Did y'all hear that? The singer is giving very much.
Fraud.
It's giving very much outsung.
It's okay, but never
We know
outperform.
we know who the star.
Never
is.
outperform, because when she had that goddamn friends, what was it? Lovers and Friends. She
Galentine.
was, yeah, Galentine's. She was on the floor
It was
punching.
meeting in my bedroom.
Yeah.
How are you going to meet in the bedroom
Yeah.
without
And
a
I
body
said,
roll?
oh,
Britney Spears
okay.
did not require a body
Yes, she
roll.
did. To hit me,
Meeting
baby, one more time.
Now,
meeting in my bedroom.
now, performance-wise, I didn't see what Sade could do. Like, she was kind of sitting down in the chair when
Thank
she
you.
sang it,
Correct.
Yeah, it was very sultry.
but the vocals
Correct.
were
The vocals-
completely there.
Oh, we're there.
So
I-
The
what's
mic was on.
the mic? What? The mic. Okay.
Move
What's
on.
your karaoke
You lost.
song?
I have a few.
Harris hit them high notes too.
Yeah, he can sing.
Yeah, I can.
Seems like everyone can, but you.
I can't think of his name right now.
You the odd one out.
Oh,
Damn.
with Paris, Keith Sweat.
Keith Sweat, yeah.
Like, what's a little?
I'm,
Don't play him on this
Yeah,
side.
yeah,
don't
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
You didn't come for that. You
I-
lost.
Yeah.
The people see,
Mm.
and next time she get on Beyonce's internet and
I
tell,
want to show you
see,
that
Why-
I need you.
why would you do that?
But
Well, we've known that though, like our whole life, that you can't sing. You that it's like the one thing our whole family knows.
Right,
You
the
can't
one
sing.
thing, and she swears she can, huh?
Swears.
Swears. That's a damn shame.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I don't like
Blasphemous.
this energy
I'm,
coming from
I'm
over there.
glad that
I'm so happy that I'm over here thriving by myself.
look, Diana Ross. Just because you changed your hair
Yeah.
doesn't mean
Put
that
some
the
respect on
vocals
it.
are.
But it's coolio underneath.
No. Performance wise though, you're good. But
Uh-huh.
the singing, no.
Yeah, the
you.
theatrics.
I
So
appreciate
maybe
it.
you need to change it.
I'm changing y'all. we gonna.
We do have a sister who can sing though, but
She can.
It's not you.
Yeah,
She can.
not
It's
you.
not you.
Keyword.
And when I tell you she can sing, don't tell her she can sing because she gonna perform. She gonna
I
put
love
it.
it.
On.
We sing karaoke together most times. Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Well, where the fuck?
Well,
We could have did a little duet
No,
here.
no,
we shouldn't.
we shouldn't.
No.
All right,
one
but
wants to hear you.
we'll record that for another time, guys. But moving right along, I do want to know, as I did in the intro, I know we did an icebreaker to remind you guys, Paris is a substance abuse counselor. So I guess I just want to know what inspired you to become a substance abuse counselor.
So there's a few things that inspired me, but I think the biggest was I was going through a surgery at the time, and I kind of was in between like wanting to do nursing, trying to more so I think following your footsteps.
Okay.
And then I realized that I wasn't going to be able to take classes in person.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to take an intro to psychopharmacology course. And from there on, like I took it and they were talking about like how the brain functions with addiction and things like that. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what I want to do.
Mhm.
There was one more thing that kind of led to it, but that's a long story. But yeah, for that, I was kind of like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I've been doing it ever since.
And I think you're phenomenal at it.
Thank you.
But how would you, like, in counseling, there's different styles that people formulate.
Right.
How would you describe your counseling style?
So I do a person-centered approach with my
Okay.
clients. I let them decide what they want to work on, what it is that they feel is most important to them for their treatment goals, and then we kind of go from there. I do a non-direct approach. So I'll reflect in what they said. I'll paraphrase, but I'll allow them to kind of come up with their own what they want to work on, essentially. Right.
Okay. I think that's important.
Love that. Do you feel like being person centered and allowing them to pick comes off as like less confrontational or judgmental, especially, with addiction?
Yes. So the stuck patient, there are patients who feel like, okay, why am I here? I just want to come in. And so I work at a medication assisted treatment facility. So that's methadone, Suboxone, Vivitrol. And so what we do is we'll introduce them to the clinic.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get, typically it's methadone. They'll get the methadone, and then they'll have to meet with me. So when they meet with me, my goal is to, build rapport with the client, and then kind of go from there and then build their treatment goals. A lot of times our clients, they don't want the the counseling,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And so when you do a person-centered approach where it's like, okay, this is for you. This isn't something that I'm forcing on you. I'm not being directed with it. I think that our clients they appreciate that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where they're kind of building their own treatment plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they're a part of
Right.
the goal, which I think is a good way.
And a lot of times I think that, you have influence from family, friends,
Big
things
time.
like that when you're in the heat of addiction. And so, when you're able to go into a treatment facility and then kind of create your own,
Mhm.
it kind of feels like that's for you. And it's not about me. I'm not judging you. I'm just
Yeah.
here to help you.
Yeah.
I
And
love
that's kind
that.
of where we are.
And I'm sure they can pick up on that too.
Right.
Because the minute they feel judged, because they're getting judged from, you know,
Everyone.
yeah, everybody around them, because it's still such a big stigma
Yeah.
against any substance abuse. Substance. So I think alcohol is less of that stigma.
Hmm. For sure.
But for certain, with some of the illicit drugs, like the heroin, the crack cocaine, and things
Mhm.
like that, is such that big stigma
Right.
behind it.
For sure.
And then I think too, I wanted to just know, we understand that addiction comes with, the ebbs and the flows. So what strategies do you use to engage with, let's say, a resistant client to treatment?
So I think person-centered approach definitely helps with that.
Mhm.
For them to know that this is for them. Like what I typically do is when I go into a session with a client, I try to remember to be an active listener. That's the number one thing, right? Show that you care. Show them that you're empathetic towards what they're going through.
Mhm.
And rephrase things to them so they know that you're listening to them.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing,
Okay.
and not always focusing on addiction. I'm seeing these people for years.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the biggest thing is we could talk about life. We don't need to talk about, okay, are you using opiates this month? Like we don't
Yeah.
need to do that every single
Yeah.
month.
Sometimes they need a friend too, right?
Yeah, they just
Like
need somebody to talk to.
I find that, like, some people
Yeah.
will get dressed up and they'll come into, I work, of course, in obesity
Mhm.
medication, which, I mean, obesity medicine, which, some might argue that's an addiction, right?
For
Food
sure it is.
addiction. So when I approach my clients with that, I try to look at it of, you're a person. Like, yeah, we go off script sometimes. That's okay. And that's why I think I connect with my patients, because you do listen to them. You let them know, like, it's okay to deal with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you where you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, just that little bit that you're giving them,
Yes.
a lot of times they don't realize that. I mean, they're not getting that from home.
Right.
They're not getting that
Correct.
from their friends. They're not getting that from their family members.
They can just talk and,
Right.
and get dressed up and come and see you. They look forward
It's
to
like a
that.
sense of relief. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I know, you mentioned that you're working with some of these people for years. And as medical providers, Sade and I, of course, know the challenges with losing patients,
Yes.
right? But in your situation, you work closely with patients for months or years, as you mentioned.
Right.
Now, how do you handle crises, like if the patient overdoses, which I'm sure, unfortunately, happens?
Yeah, so I lost 2 clients in the same weekend about 2 years ago now, and that was really devastating. Um, and in this field, we don't really know what to expect, right?
Sure.
So I'm sure for you both that when you know what's coming on Monday, right? You probably have a set schedule. You're expecting, okay, there's a 10 o'clock I have, so that 10 o'clock's going to be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, no. These clients are going to come from 5 a.m. when we open to 12:30 when we close. They're not going to. If you say 10 o'clock, they're not going to come at 10 o'clock.
Got
right?
it. And
And-
you're not no showing them.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so when I'm meeting with a client like that, the biggest thing is that I just want to make sure that we're talking about overdose prevention. We're talking about relapse prevention, and we're just talking about life. Because when they leave that clinic, I'm not sure. I don't know what's happening with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so every single time I meet with them, I definitely want to talk about overdose prevention. Even if they're 15 years abstinent,
Okay.
I want to talk about that
Mhm.
because the minute they leave that clinic, I don't know what happens.
Sure.
And then I come back to work on Monday and they're gone.
Yeah.
And then I as their counselor, I have regret. because I didn't do the things that I needed to do. So I think that what we need to do is just to make sure we're, like I said, reviewing those overdose prevention strategies,
Okay.
making sure that we're talking with these clients and kind of getting a feel for where their head is at,
Mm-hmm.
um, and their resistance to treatment is addressed
Mm-hmm.
pretty fairly quickly when they come into treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Love
think
that.
that's good, and it's also sad for you working in that type of field because I know my sister, she was on the show before as well, and she's a psychologist. And recently, this week, she lost one of her clients. She's no longer working in that field, but she did like women's reintegration, and a lot of those women struggled with drug addiction. And one of her clients who was, heavy into that lifestyle, even though she was no longer her psychologist anymore, she still, would go visit her and, like you said, educate her and try to hope that things would be different. And
Right.
I know she took the loss really hard this week when she found out that, that particular client was no longer with us.
Right.
And it's always hard because, like you said, that that is something that could happen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even she was like, of course, I know, she was heavy in this lifestyle, heavy in the streets, heavy doing those things, but you always hope that things will be better.
Right.
And it's unfortunate when it ends how you know that it can end. So I think it's also important for you guys as clinicians, to take time for yourself to process that because I think, you do build these rapport and relationships with your clients, and it is hard when, like you said, as a counselor, as someone who was a part of their support system, when, they're no longer here because, you can't take on that burden that maybe you didn't do all that you can do,
Right.
and they are still struggling with something that's bigger than you.
Right. And two, I lost a client one time. And so all those things I just mentioned,
Mhm.
right, where I'm checking in, I'm doing coping strategies, things like that. Sometimes it doesn't matter, right? I
Right.
spoke with a client a few years back. It was about 10:30 in the morning, and we got off the phone. We did the whole session. We got off the phone, and later that day, it was like lunchtime, like 12:30, 1 o'clock. I go upstairs, and one of the nurses says that the patient passed away. And I'm like, I just got off the phone with them. And so she's reading the report from Crisp, and it just said that the person was they had an overdose, and it was about close to an hour after we got off the phone.
Wow.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, so you likely used either while we were at
Oh yeah, geez.
on the phone or right at the end of the session, and I mean
Oh.
that really hurts.
Mm.
It does hurt, but I think you come to, unfortunately, you come to expect it in addiction.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be blindsided by these things. And I think that's what I've learned over the course of the 7 years that I've been doing this is that, you know, these things are unexpected,
Yeah.
and they'll happen.
Mhm.
But you can't let it get to you. You can't let that be the defining moment for what you're doing.
Right.
You know.
And kudos to you not to be jaded, right? Because I think too, like we've probably like this hardened shell of dealing with things like that, unfortunately. But for you, it sounds like you're very much so like it's okay that that happened, but I'm still going to give them this care that I can give them on this level.
Right.
I'm not going to judge them. I'm just going to give them what I have.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to do.
Absolutely. And this in this population of clients, they're always judged,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't get it. Like you mentioned, Isha, you work with people with obesity.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm a big guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I deal with that. There's sexual addiction, there's gambling addiction, there's so many different
Yes.
addictions, and people only focus on substance addiction.
Mm.
And especially working at a medication assisted treatment facility, which we do give methadone, a lot of people have this preconceived notion that these are the worst of the worst addicts.
Right.
And I don't even like to say the word addict, honestly.
Sure.
The place that I work at, we try to eliminate all that negative wording.
Yes.
So we encourage our clients to say positive and negative and not clean and dirty, or we don't want them to call themselves addicts, but just users,
Right.
right?
Okay.
just to get rid of that language, because once you change the language, you can
Yes.
change the person itself, right?
Yes.
So
That's powerful.
yeah, and so working at this facility, it's allowed me to really focus on that, and they've uplifted me to, you know, to help my clients see their potential,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people don't do. And a
Yeah.
lot of our clients, they even still say those things, right?
Yeah.
Clean, dirty, but that they're used to hearing that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
And like you said, they've taken on the names that are given to them.
right.
And addiction goes so much deeper than substance. Even when I was on my way here today, I was talking to my mom. She was like, "Oh, what are you guys going to be talking about?" I told her we would have you. And she's like, "I need to call in," because
Yeah.
she's like, "I have a shopping addiction." But like you said, no one's going to side eye
No.
Mm-hmm.
her for that, even though
Yeah.
it can put you in financial turmoil. And there's a lot of things that, you know, on the outside looking in, people don't know because, you know, you seem like you have it together. And a lot of times with substance, I think it's more physically, you know, attainable. You can see like the person, you know, may not be what you think they should look like aesthetically.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's people who are gambling who go to work every day who look like they have it together,
Right.
and they literally will go take their whole check and go to the casino. You don't know
Wow.
that, but it's like it's the same type of thing. Addiction is like you pointed out with your, you know, your psychotherapy. It's something in your brain. Like it's something in your brain that's compulsive. Like
Right.
we all have things like that. So there's functional alcoholics. There's functional people who snort cocaine. They could be surgeons or doctors and
Yeah.
like that. You don't see it, but
Yeah.
it's like that's an addiction. And I think a lot of the times, especially in the world that we live in, like the judging and the view on people is disheartening because it's like a lot of people are struggling with a lot of things, like you said, whether it's porn, whether it's sex, whether it's gambling, whether
Right.
it's shopping, whether it's eating disorders.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
addiction goes so much more deeper than substance. That's just, you know, your specialty. But like you said, I love that you guys are trying to change that narrative for those people because
Sure.
I think they're one of the top judged addiction.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned that you individualize your therapy to your patients, to your clients. But how do you maintain that healthy boundary of not becoming too close with your clients?
Yeah, that can be difficult
Yeah.
at times,
Yeah.
because sometimes you see your clients and you're having these conversations with them and you're like, oh wow, that, like, you're having these deep conversations
Yeah.
sometimes. And there are some people that are going to remind you of family members, friends, things like that. But I think it's just important to remember that you're there to help them. And I think that person-centered approach really does help too, because I'm not sharing my opinions, right? I'm just allowing you to show me what you want to discuss, things
Yeah.
that you want to work on. So it doesn't really give too much for me to share my story, my things like that to the clients. So I try to just focus on them. And you set those boundaries when you first meet them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Paris. You know, this is what we're going to work on. This is the expectations. You make sure that you don't do anything beyond
Yeah.
the scope of your work. Unfortunately, with addiction, there are a lot of people who are I can't think of the word I'm trying to use. Manipulation is a big point in addiction.
Yeah.
That's
Unfortunately.
yeah. And so sometimes you might it might pull at your heartstrings when you hear these stories from your clients.
Yeah.
But you cannot allow yourself to um, to go down that rabbit hole of
No.
trying to help every client with every single thing that's going on.
No.
I'm here to help you with your addiction. If you need help with other things, I can give you those resources, but I'm not going to leave my job early, for example, and I'm not going to go down.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down to your house to do this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. But everybody knows I'm going to do
You
the
do.
most I can do, right?
And you raise. You also do a big donation
Yep.
for them,
Coats and hats and scarves.
which is so big because it's so nice, because that's really, and I hate to say this, I'm kind of sad to admit that. That's probably the only time I really give away.
Yeah.
And I need to do more of it. I will throw stuff away, but I need to be more intentional with donating. Like I've donated coats and bags and shoes or whatever to them because I'm feeling like they don't care. They just want to go on this job interview. They want to do this thing. They don't care if it's like I told Sade. Like I have another green shirt, but the collar is just a little loose, and to them, they don't care.
No.
Like it's little things like that where you're like you just want to give back and do this, and you do that.
Yeah.
So you help us to give back too.
Yeah.
Because when you call the duty, everybody pitches in, which is nice.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I mean, you have some great places around Baltimore City, especially. That's where I work, where they're they're doing these drives and things like that. But the clients, they have to show up at the certain window of time, from 10 to 11. They're giving away jackets, right? That's hard.
Yeah.
It really is. It's hard for anybody,
Mhm.
right? And it's hard for anybody. But then you have clients who are trying to get their lives back together, right? They were in the heat of addiction, so they're not thinking about. Oh, so they have all these different things that they're going through. They have to come to the clinic. They have primary care doctor appointments. They're having dentist appointments. They have to try to get back into work, things like that. And now you're telling them they have to show up in this tight window.
Yeah.
So while we're open, as long as we're open, I'm going to give them a shirt,
I love that.
jacket,
Yeah.
pants, whatever. And yeah,
And that goes a long way.
I think it is good to give back. I try to give back at least once a year,
Yeah.
if not more, because
Yeah.
I have a lot of stuff. So I think last year I gave about 8 bags away.
Yeah,
to the women.
recently you did
Yeah,
too.
to the women's shelter. And I also think I want to go back to what you said about enforcing your boundaries. I think that's very important because I
Yes.
tell my sister that all the time.
Mhm.
Because even with that client, like I said, she hadn't been her provider in like 2 years, but the fact
Yeah.
that you're still in touch with them
Mhm.
is a little lack of the boundaries, you
Right.
know. And I understand you're upset, and like you said, they pull at your heartstrings,
Yeah.
and you want everyone to do well, but then you find yourself in these situations where you're teetering that line of your own mental health because you're so impacted by what they have going on because you've went outside of your scope.
Right.
Which I think it's hard, especially when you see clients like that, because even as a nurse, I've gotten close to patients
Mhm.
outside of just treating them, and then if they die or something happens, then I know it's mentally taxing on me. So I
Yeah.
think, like, when you have a good heart and you want to see people do well, it's hard to not fall for, like you said, the manipulation and the heartstrings, but you have to understand, like, you're there to do a job, and
Right.
even if you don't do everything for that person to try to make them be better, you
Mhm.
still have done what you're there to do.
And anytime you're looking at your code of ethics in whatever
Mm.
profession you're doing, then you're probably not doing the right thing, or you're teetering that line,
Yeah.
like you just said. So yeah,
Correct.
it's really important to make sure that if you have a supervisor, check in with them. Say, okay, I want to do this for this client. Is that okay? I do that a lot. I probably get on my supervisor's nerves, but
But you're by the book.
right, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I want to help, but I
Yeah.
want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing and ask the questions, because
Yeah.
you don't want a client to then take advantage of you because you're then helping them beyond the scope of what you
You're
should be
supposed-
doing. Right.
Yeah,
Love
I
that.
love that.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that addiction hits home for many of us, like I said, whether it's family members, friends, even yourself. Like, how do you love someone through that transition? Like, would you say if they're not really ready to make those changes?
So if they're not ready to make the changes, they're still a human. They're just, it's just that they're using a substance, right? That they probably didn't intend on using long term. They probably just wanted to try something, and then they ended up getting hooked onto it. So I don't judge people for that. I don't think that you're a bad person because you're using cocaine or heroin or fentanyl. I think that you're just a person that tried something and now you're stuck where you are. I think that um yeah, you just have to love people through that. You have to support people because a lot of times they don't have that support. Or their family members might try to love and support them through it, but then they might steal from them or go
Yeah.
to jail, and then the family gets to the point where they give up. And so then they don't have much left.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's important to try to love them through it all. I get that it's hard. because if you're losing your car or
Mm.
or your money or whatever it
Mhm.
is, having to take time off of work to help your child who might be dealing with addiction, I get that that might be too much. But these people need love and they need support, because while they're at their worst, God knows there's somebody who's trying to do worse to them on the street, because
Oh,
there's somebody else who's in addiction who just doesn't give a crap. I
Mhm.
hmm
almost said, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and so there are people who don't care out there, and so they're out there dealing with that. And so if you can just give them a little bit of love, I think that's really important. So yeah.
I agree. How is it possible to be present for those, like you said, loving them through addiction, but it's also detrimental to, like your mental health. Like, I know, for example, like my aunt who recently passed away, not from addiction, but struggled from it, with addiction. If it's someone that you love, I feel like it's detrimental to you to see them like that and you can't help them. Like like there's nothing that you can do to fix it until they're actually ready. So, how do you feel like it's possible to love them through that, like you said, because they do need that support and love, but also balancing your own mental health and setting boundaries?
I think you just have to realize that their brain has changed, right? I look at it a little bit like with our grandmother who had dementia before she passed away. She wasn't the same person towards the end. She wasn't.
hmm
But we know who she was.
Yeah.
We know that she's the most loving person ever.
hmm
And so for her to forget my name towards the end was difficult, right?
Sure.
I'm not comparing dementia directly to addiction at all. But what I'm saying is that you can still love somebody and love who they were as a person, and you can still love them for who they are today.
hmm
But you have to recognize that there was a change in their brain chemistry at some
Absolutely.
at some point, from what the substances that they were using, and try to love them as much as you can. And I think one of you said it in one of the previous episodes. I think it was the second episode, where you can't pour into other people if your glass is empty, right?
hmm
And so every day I try to make sure that I'm working on myself first. I try to work on myself before I help my clients.
Yes.
It's hard to do every day when this is your job, right? Because some days I'm going to go into work with an empty glass, right?
Yeah.
But I want to be able to help everybody, and for people who are dealing with someone with addiction who doesn't do this for a living, make sure you work on yourself first, because it's hard to help other people when you're pissed off, when you're angry at them
Yeah.
for them dealing with their addiction. I mean, I get it. It's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have that stuck client, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you're like, come on, we can do this.
Yeah.
But that's not the approach. That's never going to change them,
No.
ever. And
Yeah.
you just have to recognize that and help them by loving them.
hmm
When they're ready, you're there to
Yep.
support them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Definitely. You definitely have to pour into yourself first, which is harder, like you said, especially when it's clients or people that you love. But
Yeah.
like I always say, you cannot pour from an empty glass. So, I mean,
Mm-mm.
you have to, like you said, know that this is not the person that you knew and that things have changed, and you have to love the new version of them,
Right.
whatever that looks like for you, in order to maintain like your healthy boundaries and healthy mindset for yourself, for
Right.
Yeah.
sure.
And I mean, that takes us into a great segue for our listeners who may be struggling themselves or have a loved one that's struggling. Um, it can be difficult, as you mentioned. But could you provide some helpful health tips for us? Perhaps some resources that are available.
Yeah, so I definitely would utilize 211. If you go to 211.org, that is you can type in any different thing, like I need housing, I need treatment, a treatment facility. You could also utilize 988 as well. So you have two numbers that you can utilize for sure. 211, you can go.
Are these national numbers?
Yeah, so 211 is for Maryland as far as that I know of.
Okay.
988 is is for
Nationwide.
Okay.
nationwide, right? And 988 is for crisis and suicidal ideations,
Okay.
right? 211 is for any services within Maryland,
Got it.
right? And so if you are somebody that's seeking treatment, go ahead and go on 211 .org, and you know, you can type in whatever you need to get treatment. Um, and yeah, so
Love
yeah,
that.
that's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll definitely put that in the link of the YouTube and on the audio. So if there's anyone who is struggling with addiction or knows someone
Mhm.
that may be beneficial from these resources, we'll absolutely put that so that you can.
I would even
get them.
say that you probably as well. You could probably call a clinic. You could call any clinic in Baltimore City or you know in neighboring counties or anything like that, and they should be able to steer you the right way.
Okay.
I just wouldn't say give up. Like, oh, I can't remember what 211 is. Just look up any neighboring clinic, and there should be a counselor, a peer support specialist, or anybody who can help you with that. Yeah.
Yes, and I know, and I thank you for those resources, but also too, I know you just told me give me resources. Can you please also tell us, your education on a possible overdose? What would you tell that person specifically, like to prevent an overdose?
To prevent an overdose,
Mm-hmm.
um, make sure that if you are using, so we try to go with a harm reduction model, right? So
Okay.
if you are using, use with people that you trust and know, right? There's a big stigma around it, so a lot of people use alone,
In private.
right?
Yes.
Because they don't want anyone to know what's going on.
Correct.
Find somebody that you trust if you are going to use. You can also go to, and I'll try to get the information if you guys
Okay.
want to share it. There are places in Baltimore City where you can go, and there's free vending machines, right?
Mhm.
For Narcan, you can get Narcan free, obviously, throughout Baltimore.
Yes.
You can get fentanyl test strips. That's the most important thing. You want to make sure you're getting the fentanyl test strips.
So you know what you're getting.
Right.
Right.
Because now it's laced in everything. It's in heroin, it's in cocaine, it's in marijuana.
Pills.
Yeah. And so we even encourage clients, if you're going to smoke marijuana, go to a dispensary.
Big time.
We're so focused on harm reduction. Like, we don't want you to die. That's the thing. So get the fentanyl test strips. Always have a Narcan
Yeah.
kit on you, and make sure that you're using with somebody that you know and trust.
And that they know that if I call,
Yeah.
I will not get in trouble.
Right.
We just are worried about you making it to see another day.
Right. And we actually did a in service on that recently with our
Right.
clients, and a lot of our clients didn't know that.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are used to the old way where if you call and report it, then you're going to go to jail.
Right.
And so now people are just leaving people to die in abandoned homes and things like that, or in the middle of the street, because they don't know
Right.
that
Yeah.
they're not going to go to jail for this.
Mhm.
You know, that they're protected. So yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
of
I
course.
love
It's
that.
been a pleasure.
I
I
love
really
that.
appreciate this.
So for our Dizzle devotion today, I know that today's topic probably hit home for a lot of us, including myself, as someone who's seen and experienced loved ones who suffered from addiction. I know the toll it can take on you mentally when you want to be able to save the ones you love but are unable to because, they're stuck in their own way, or as Paris told us, they're a different person. Their brain is no longer operating at the same capacity that it once was. So in seasons of uncertainty and when you feel stuck, you have to lean on the power that is stronger than your own understanding. God didn't bring you this far to leave you, and he didn't bring, the ones that you love that far to leave them. So you have to sit in that and be comfortable and okay with knowing that this is just a season and you have to be present, and you're present for a reason. So when you're watching someone you love go down in demise, you have to lean on his understanding, not your own. So you cannot ever question your faith. You can't ever question, why is this happening to someone you love? Why is it happening to you? You just have to lean on God for his understanding and hope that he's going to give you the strength to get through the addiction, if it's you that is suffering or if it's someone that you love that is suffering. He is the healer. He is the ruler. You cannot evoke change when there is no will, and you cannot take on baggage that you did not pack. Don't allow the mishaps of addiction of others to consume you. The only thing you should be fiending for is his love. And the Lord will continue to pray for you and show you that his way is the best way and there's no better way out there. So, for you or anyone that is listening to this podcast, viewing it, I'm praying for you and that I hope that, Pierce's message and his resources reach you and the ones that you love and that you lean on to God's understanding and understand that he can heal all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. And I just want to say thank you so much, Paris, for coming and joining us on the How You Doing podcast.
Thank you.
Yes.
Long overdue. Next time, we're just going to have to discuss some other things.
We'll discuss peanut butter and jelly.
Specifically, crunchy peanut butter.
I just want to say we're well stocked up in my house. Crunchy peanut butter.
Just for the people who don't know, just because.
Because
he's
now-
trying to be humble today. What
right.
exactly are you trying to tell our viewers to do with the peanut butter?
Oh, nothing. I'm just saying that we're
He's being meek today, guys.
yeah.
All I want to say is, don't try this at home, okay? Because don't be calling us when your coochie lips are stuck together like Maisha
With the
did
pad.
with the pad backwards, okay? Peanut butter is for bread only, not for your kitty cat, okay? Thank you.
People are going to be scratching their heads,
Yeah.
but we just
No, somebody gonna try it, and they gonna be in there, and I told y'all.
When you have me back on,
we'll have
we'll
you back
discuss
on
it.
to discuss it.
Yeah, because I am writing something for this.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
It's like a little dissertation.
Dissertation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
We're going to have you back for that. But we just want to say thank you again. And thanks to our listeners. Until next time, we want you to stay healthy, curious, but most of all, be inspired. And remember, we always ask others how they're doing, but don't forget to check in with
How you doing?